Zoom, we are good to proceed.
Excellent, thank you. Next item on the agenda is supplemental plans, preview of upcoming work.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll start off with this one. And we have with us Sarah Bachter from RVK. RVK is our investment fiduciary that helps us perform oversight of our 403B plans. I'll kick it off with some upcoming work that you can expect to see, and then we will, Sarah can help me with any questions or corrections as necessary. So next month will be our typical quarterly meeting where Empower comes to present how we're doing on our 403B plans. The way this typically goes, as many of you know, is that Gabe, our primary rep, will kind of give us the high level plan demographics, what's happening with our plan numbers, how they're changing assets. He also has with him some of our dedicated reps in Vermont sometimes to give a report from the field, and as necessary, sometimes some report from their comms people or what have you. Then we have Joe Fine, who has been the one that provides our investment review. Now that we have RVK as our investment fiduciary, we are going to move to having Sarah and team present the investment review. They are doing the individual looks over the over individual managers, and will help us understand sort of how our fund lineup is performing, what we should be thinking about, and where we stand. So it's going to look a little different as we move into next month. And I just, rather than having everyone sort of unsure as to why we're moving this way, it makes sense, given RVK's new role as our investment fiduciary, to have them advise directly the board on that piece. So I'm really excited about it. I think having the two entities reporting together, sort of as we did at the in-person May meetings, will be a more robust way for the board to understand how our lineup is working. Couple other things that we're working on. Sarah and team are putting together the investment policy statement that we talked about in May, and a watch list policy. So over the course of the next month, we will be working at the staff level with RVK to refine that. I know that they have used the VPIC investment policy statement as a sort of initial consulted draft to see how Vermont has approached investment policy. And so taking off of that, but tailoring it to the 403B plan, we look forward to providing that to you in draft form in August, both that and a watch list policy. That's a kind of foundational document. So what my expectation is that we'll present it to you in draft form in August, but not ask for final action. I've also talked to Eric Henry over at VPIC, and I'm going to have him take a look at it. I want this to kind of percolate with folks over a couple meetings so that you can think about it, because then going forward, as we review our funds, as we make decisions on investments, as on our fund lineup and whatnot, that we have a real rooted sense of these are our principles, this is our policy, and we're going to work within this policy going forward. So that's some of the work that's coming up next month. Another two more quick things. You will see in the new format that Empower is using to report, each of the plans has some plan level assets. It's the plan expense account assets that are in there that we can use to defray costs of administering the plan. We have been working behind the scenes with Empower to try and create a more robust way of reporting that, so we understand what plan level assets we have. They're not particularly significant, but again, there's some reporting tweaks that we're still trying to dial in with Empower as we've transitioned from Prudential to Empower. And then finally, folks probably realize that we sent a sheet titled Vermont Mutual Fund Fee Share Class. What that is Sarah and her team took a look at all of our funds and where there is a potential lower share class available. So basically the same fund, but in a share class that has lower fees, which we can be eligible for now that our assets have grown to certain levels. We are in all likelihood going to move forward and recommend those actions to the board. I wanted to flag it here because since Sarah did this work, we've been dialing this in a little bit further to understand if any of these funds where there's another a lower share class, if there's any revenue share that we have to be aware of or any other complicating factor. What we expect is that next month for any of the funds that are in the 403B plan where we can achieve savings by getting into a lower share class for our members, we would bring those to you for action. And then that sets off a 90-day process where Empower does, communications, and it really kind of keeps the same fund. So it's not, like we're changing to, from core bonds to international, growth equity or something. It's really just the same fund, but a lower share class. So, some of these funds do have some small, but, not immaterial savings for our members. And, as we say, everybody counts. So, that's where that's some of the upcoming work that we're going to be doing in the next couple of board meetings. A little difference in how we've done it in the past, and I just didn't want that all to land as a surprise. So I thought we'd just take a minute to preview that work for you and answer any questions you may have.
So the communication between Empower and RBK, Sarah, when you, I loved reading the list and the savings. I always love savings. So this is all great. So Joe Fine used to do that for Empower, give the overview of the market. The back and forth between RBK and Empower, when you generate this information, are you sharing that with them, or are you come to us, share the information, and as a board, we then say, we digest that, we then would have questions for Empower and then make a change? How does the workings with RBK and Empower? I'm just trying to put together how the organizational chart works when and if we, well, it's going to be when we make a share class change. In the past, historically, it would have been the vendor, Empower would come to us and say, oh, we have a lower share class, we can save participants money. Do you want to do that? Now we have you, Sarah, doing outstanding work, showing us this stuff. So how does the process work?
Sarah, if I may just jump in front of you for a second, historically, John, as you recall, when VPIC was not a standalone commission, and we had the investments team in the treasurer's office, we had, it was Matt back in the day, Eric Henry now and his team. We would have them do before anything would get to the board. If there was this lower share class available, it would go through the investments team that would perform many of the same services that that RBK will be doing now. Ultimately, the idea was that Empower is not an investment fiduciary; they're a record keeper. So we always want to go through the folks who really have that fiduciary obligation to the board to make sure that this is the recommended approach. So in many ways, what Sarah and team are doing are replicating that piece that used to be in-house, but for the restructuring, now as a separate agency that doesn't have a role in this space.
That's really helpful. I had forgotten that we had VPIC in the house and was doing that. Thank you. That explains it perfectly.
And the working relationship, I will say, and Sarah, you can verify this, between us at staff level, Sarah at investment fiduciary level, and Empower as record keeper, has been quite good. It's a pretty free flow. I think everyone understands the importance of understanding what everyone's doing. Very professional, and so it has. You always get nervous that people might be might find it difficult to give a peek behind the curtain. But I think, Sarah, you can speak to this. I think it's been quite productive so far.
Yeah, no, I'll second that. And we always need a good partnership with any client's record keeper in order to make the relationship really work best for your needs. A lot of the information we need will typically come from them directly, and there's a lot of areas where their perspective is also really important on the operational side, on how things are implemented. So, for example, in this particular project, we really needed their input and feedback on what a typical future class change process would look like. What is the general approach? We also need additional information from them that we cannot simply get from third-party sources, such as revenue share. These are very specific record keeper level information that they have to provide for us. So we had reviewed that project earlier with them, requested that information, got their feedback and thoughts on the typical process for making a change like this. And as with this project, with any other project, it's going to be a similar approach where we'll work collaboratively with them and with staff as an extension of your staff to help facilitate any ongoing projects.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. That's very helpful. Other questions? Excellent. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, end of fiscal year update.
This is, we'll tick through these last few items pretty quickly. I just wanted to, as we come to the end of the fiscal year, always tracking closely the ADEC. We have a couple outstanding items with respect to the fiscal 25 ADEC in the form of the new teacher assessment. Sorry, George. Actuarially determined employer contribution, the amount of money we need from the state as recommended by the actuary each year. And we have one for our pension plan and one for our health insurance, what we call our OPEB plan. So that money, most of it comes in a lump sum at the beginning of the year. We've actually already gotten funded for the fiscal 26 initial slug of money that we send over to VPIC. But what lags are for the pension system, the schools are responsible for a pro rata share of federal grants. So if there's a position funded by a federal grant, and that the salary is paid out of that, well, the pension amount is also paid out of that, and so schools remit that to us directly throughout the year. We don't have that all in yet. That process takes a month or two to close after the fiscal year. And actually, that was quite concerning as we finished the third quarter this year. There's not a remarkable statement to say that there's a lot going on at the federal level. And so federal grants are coming in lower than usual. Fortunately, we were able to get into the budget an amount of money that is sitting in reserves in the event that that number comes in below what the actuarially recommended amount is. And it's really important for us to make sure we hit that amount. That affects the state's bond rating. It keeps us on a path to full funding. So we're really attuned to that number. And we work closely with our friends at Finance and Management, another agency in the state government, to ensure that that amount is hit. So we won't know, the last report was the third quarter. We won't know till fourth quarter closes if we're going to hit the amount that we assumed we'll hit. But we will book the accrual and be confident that we will meet our FY25 ADEC. There's a little piece on the healthcare side, our OPEB side, that's funded by a surcharge to the schools on teachers hired after 2015, I believe. And I'm told by our operations team that we are on track to hit that one. So just wanted to update the board on that. I put out our FY26 teacher contribution rates. Happily, no changes. As a result of Act 114, over the past few years, there have been increases to active employee contribution rates that have gone in place. On the state side, there's still increases rolling in this year and next. But for the teachers side, this year we are staying the course. The Act 114 rates are fully implemented. So we are steady at this point. And that memo is just there to reflect that. We put it on our website. Finally, the end of fiscal year comes with the kickoff of actuarial season. We had our kickoff meeting yesterday with our actuarial team and our pension administration system. So, given the fact that we are now hosted in the cloud, there's going to be a little change in the data sharing. So what we've been really keyed in on this year is getting ahead of the game to make sure that we don't find ourselves a couple months down the road and realize that the one person should have been talking to the other person at this place and not that place. Oftentimes in this role, I just view myself as doing traffic control. So we're on track. Everyone knows who to talk to for our valuations, and we look forward to getting them to you in late October. So that is the end of fiscal year update on my end, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Partner email accounts.
And this is an exciting one. And not relevant to anyone with a state email account. But what we are trying to do is get everybody on what we have, these partner accounts where we, it kind of brings your email address within the state domain. And these partner accounts are available to people who, like, John or George or Aaron, folks who serve Perry's, people who serve on boards, but aren't state employees. Bill will be in touch with you is basically what you need to know. There's a memo there, and hopefully this will facilitate and enhance our security and give us additional ways, like through SharePoint, to share our materials with the board in advance of meetings.
Yeah, one time we actually had laptops that
iPads, right?
Yeah, iPad, yeah.
There's a brief
iPad. We were queued to get new, updated. I don't know if we were going to get a laptop or iPad, and COVID hit the month before we were going to have a meeting. So look at the money we saved.
There you go.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, any other business come before the board? All right, we'll take time. So anyone comfortable making a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. George, you made it through your first meeting. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Welcome, George.
Welcome to the
Thanks, folks.
of the features.